Greetings, Batavia Mayor Jeff Schielke speaking to you on Friday, August 19th, 2022. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time today talking about transportation improvements that may or may not be happening in the very near term in Batavia. The city of Batavia has put ourselves on a list of, there's what they call STP money that comes into Kane County, and there's if you have a project that can meet the standards, in other words, it's on a major highway situation and maybe involving railroads or whatever have you, you can apply for STP money. And in our case, we have put an application in to deal with the intersection at Prairie and Wilson Street. And when you put this in, you put yourself on a list, and the list goes for 3, 5, 6 years. So it may be several years before you physically will be seeing activity. But what we have asked is that we would like to, we were been told by the transportation safety people that the intersection at Prairie and Wilson, from a rail perspective, has way too many cars crossing it in comparison to the rail traffic that's there. In other words, they're fearful that, and one of these days when we have one of these smaller trains come through, there's enough traffic on the streets that it could cause for some type of an accident. So our traffic numbers exceed significantly the numbers on the railroad tracks, but that's a problem in itself. So we have been told that we needed to put up some crossing gates. And as you think about that intersection, the crossing gates are not, the railroad crossing is not immediately at the intersection. It is south on Prairie Street, I don't know, 150 feet, and it is east of Prairie Street on Wilson, about 200 feet before the traffic crosses the railroad crossing. So what they are telling us is we would need to have two legs of the intersection, eastbound Wilson from Prairie and southbound Prairie from Wilson would be the two that would have to have a crossing gate situation put into place. The other two legs of the intersection would not be impeded by the railroad train, but it would cause some confusion as it applies to everything else that's happening there. So the recommendation is that we put up a traffic signal at Prairie and Wilson, and that anytime a train gets near it, it'll immediately red every leg of the intersection until the train gets through and the crossing gates come down and then go back up. So that's kind of the plan for it. It may be several years away. As last I looked, we're still on the list, but we're not immediately. I would tell you 2024 would probably be the best guess right now of when that would take place. Another traffic improvement that we have largely is to the thanks of our now departing Congresswoman Underwood, who was kind enough to put West Main Street in Batavia from basically about Van Noordtrecht Avenue west to Randall Road on the federal program to kind of widen that lanes out and potentially put in a sidewalk on the south side of the intersection. And when you get out past the Covenant Church and the fire station, you've got the Mooseheart property, of which we have annexed for about approximately 495 acres out there. And at some point there, we've kind of identified, without any clarity, there's going to be a entrance into that Mooseheart property at some point west of the fire station. And so this will give us, working with Mooseheart in the days ahead, we'll figure out where they would like to have this entrance for what they plan to do out there over the next few years. And as a result of that, Congressman Underwood, last I chatted with her, said that that one's moving along and we should be getting some funding for it. So those are the two things right now that are kind of in the hopper. They're waiting for the funding and approvals. And anytime you're dealing with the federal program, there's generally about a 20% local match. So the city staff has been planning for that kind of in our funding of how we're paying for things. So those are the two major traffic issues we got. And another one certainly is studying North Batavia Avenue from basically Houston Street up to Fabian Parkway and turning that into these lane and a half configurations that already exist in Geneva going north from Fabian. And that one seems to have some benefit to it, specifically when we get up near the homestead, where we would have a turn lane going into the homestead entrances, and all those folks wouldn't be sitting out in the middle of a 4-lane highway waiting to make turns on it. So those are the things that are kind of in the works. We got studies and engineering and reviews and all kinds of good stuff going on, and that's probably going to be the major improvements that we have. As long as we're talking about Congressman Underwood and others, I just want to kind of alert everybody, and I think most of you know this, Batavia has lost many of the people whose names you've seen on the ballot in the last couple of elections. Specifically, Congressman Underwood has been basically removed from Batavia after November. She's running for re-election in her new district, which is down further south around Aurora and then going down into the Joliet area. And I think it's a pretty strong district for her to run in. So she has been a very good congressman, and so I'm sorry to lose her, but I think she should be around for a while with the district that she's going to run in. The other ones that have changed significantly are the state senators and the state representatives. And as you may know, we have to reapportion these wards or these districts every 10 years after the most recent federal census, which was in 2020. And so that's been done, and it would appear that, again, most of the people who were Batavia representatives are no longer so. We'll see where it goes, but I would just want to alert you that when you go into the ballot on November, you're going to see a bunch of names there, and I guess I would encourage all Batavians to kind of educate themselves as to who all these new folks are and what their platforms are and what they think they want to do, because it's not the same people we had before. So it's the changing nature of politics, and they call this thing gerrymandering when the one political party has the chance to draw the lines for the new districts. In this case, I believe it was the Democratic Party, and they drew some stuff up, and I'm not arguing with any of it. The people who I think will be the new representatives will probably do a most admirable job. I was very sorry to lose State Representative Hirschauer. She now only has a very, very small portion of Batavia left in her district, and she goes over into DuPage County, over into West Chicago and Carroll Stream and Bartlett, and then comes back into Kane County up north around South Elgin. So she's dealing with all new people in her district, and we only had her for 2 years. I'm fearful that she certainly is in a different district that's going to have to re-campaign and educate everybody as to who she is and what she stands for. But she was, in my opinion, a very good legislator for our area, and I'm very sorry to see her lose most of Batavia. So I drew that line. It's just a few houses south of where she lives, over on the southeast side of town behind the fire station, and so most of those folks are all going to have new representatives on the ballot too. So I don't know if this has been good news or bad news. It's kind of the updated report as to what's going on in the transportation and the political world, and I guess I'll call it for now the end of this one, and I'll look forward to talking to you all next week. Have a great week.